Food for Thought with Professor David Dete.
Welcome to another episode of Food for Thought with Professor Dete. Last week, we kicked off a very interesting conversation talking about insomnia, understanding what it is and why it happens. We didn't quite finish the conversation, so let's pick it up from where we left off last week. Most part of the last year, I could not sleep. I usually wake up at 3 and I go to bed at 9:30. So I'd go to bed at 9:30 and I would be awake sometimes until 2. And I'm not sleeping. I'm just tossing and turning. I sleep at 2, but I have an internal clock at 3, I just wake up. So by the time I'm up, going to work, I feel I am so exhausted.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I'm glad you have talked about internal clock. Then the question is, why is that people don't sleep?
Yeah.
What are the causes?
What are the causes?
The commonest of these is anxiety. Because when you are anxious, your brain is stimulated. It's like it's on the alert.
Yes.
Yeah, and you can always tell a person who is anxious. It's very easy. You just watch the way they sit. It's not like the way you are sitting, or probably or the way I'm sitting. But if you see, when you see somebody sitting like this, yes, I'm just like this, and like they are ready.
It's like they are ready to take off.
Yes. That is a person who is very anxious, and of course the other things you look at the face, the other things you look at the eyes, and even if they tell you they are not anxious, I get people here. We usually have interesting things, observations. I know them. Commonest is anxiety. Anxiety can come in very many different ways. There is anxiety, what we call, or we used to call, but I think for purposes of this kind of thing, we call it reactive anxiety.
Okay.
Let me tell you what it means. It's anxiety, but it's reactive. It's anxiety that can be linked to something that you can understand. Okay. It may be pressure work. It may be a family issue. It's something that you are reacting, which is understandable. Okay. That when people are under that kind of situation, it's stressful. It's like to cause some tension in the body. It's likely to cause some problems because your mind is on the alert. Yeah. And for you to be able to sleep, your mind has to go down to a certain level, which is away from being awake. So anxiety is very common. And then there's also something we call, for lack of better term, endogenous. Endogenous is like, it's not somebody feels anxious, but you ask them why. And this, I'm sure very many patients will have been asked this question by many doctors. Why aren't you sleeping? What are you worrying about? What are you thinking about? Yeah. And sometimes they tell you, no, me, I have no problem whatsoever. I'm okay with my family, and things like that. Work is okay. It's like endogenous. It's like there's nothing you can explain. Explain why you are not sleeping well. And by the way, we are talking about the mind acting at full speed, etc. Some people don't know they take a lot of coffee, or they take a lot of tea, black tea, and their minds remain stimulated. And there are people who, when they take coffee, they cannot sleep. If I take coffee now, I will not sleep for the next 2 days. And that's the way I am, and because we are very different, their minds get easily stimulated. So it can be also caused by the kind of drugs that they take. Depression is a very common cause of depression, and the depression can also, for being very simple, can come as a result of the same mechanism. There's something they call reactive depression. It's like there's something that is making you depressed.
Yes.
And then there's also what we now call for purposes of this endogenous depression, where people get depressed and there's nothing that
you can't put a finger to it.
Yeah. Bipolar depression is another very common cause of lack of sleep, especially when they are depressed. They have some difficulties in falling off to sleep.
Yes.
And when they are on the high, they are on high drive. They have so many things to do, and they don't want to waste time sleeping. You see?
Yeah.
The other situation when they are depressed, they want to sleep. They feel they are missing sleep.
Yes.
They want to sleep, but they cannot sleep. When they are high, when they are manic, sleeping is a waste of time. I don't want to sleep. And of course, if they don't want, when they stay awake, they disturb other people. So it's the other people who complain we cannot sleep because this gentleman is busy and in the middle of the night is playing loud music or is even singing and so on. So almost any psychiatric condition where there is an element of worry or depression can cause problems with the sleep. Let's take, for example, people with what we call schizophrenia. People with schizophrenia may not be able to sleep or fall off to sleep because they hear voices. And these are voices that are threatening them. These are voices that may be abusing them. And surely, it will be abnormal if they experience those things and they did not react with some kind of anxiety. So the anxiety and the depression is a normal reaction to the process of hearing people, and you don't know whether they are going to attack you. The hearing of voice is the abnormal condition, is the abnormal disorder. But how they react to it is a perfectly understandable reaction to that condition. So this is why we say it tends to occur in very many psychiatric conditions because of their comorbidity occurring together with anxiety and depression. In the same way, it tends to occur in very many physical conditions. If people have physical conditions, they are pain, they can't sleep, they are suffering from terminal illness, of course they will be anxious because of what this means and so on. Unfortunately, if you don't have the time, it's much easier if the patient says, I am not sleeping. You don't unpack it for them to see where it is, because they may mean different things, and I think we should come to that before we miss it. What you need to make them understand is exactly why they are not sleeping, and then don't stop there. Don't focus on the lack of sleep.
Lack of sleep.
No. If they are not sleeping, is it because they're anxious? And if they're anxious, what are they anxious
about?
That's why, because this is anxiety is a symptom. You want to treat that issue.
Even the lack of sleep is a symptom.
Yes, there are times when it is not a symptom. We'll get back to that. So if they are not sleeping, just they are not sleeping, please be very careful not to start prescribing medicine just like that. They may have some use for a short time, but it's very important to know what it is that they are not. Why is it that they are not sleeping? Is it a problem somewhere? Can we talk about that problem? Is it because of some pain, because of some illness? Then can we talk about that? But just to give medicine because somebody is not sleeping, and this is what patients they can be very demanding.
It's interesting because, like I said, when I was going through that last year, I talked to a friend of mine, and I was asking them what's the best medication to take. And they said, please don't go in that direction.
Very good friend.
They advised me, please do not go in that direction. Those things can be addictive. It's also not good. Just try and figure out why you're not sleeping.
Exactly. That was a very good friend, a very timely and appropriate advice. Now, you remember, we started by saying there are four types for purpose of this discussion. When people have difficulties going out to sleep,
Yes.
it's usually some kind of anxiety for whatever reason. And when they have restless sleep, some kind of anxiety, it's like they are asleep, they have awake.
Yeah.
But when they start going to nightmares or waking early in the morning, then you are most likely dealing with depression. And of course, yes, a very common presentation of depression. And of course, it's not just waking up early in the morning. Depression will present in so many ways. And that's just one of the symptoms. And when they feel tired in the morning, it's just because they did not get adequate sleep. So, as you can see, in all those things, the one I've talked about, it's either is an issue of quality of sleep and the quantity of sleep, or both of them.
Yes.
Quality, quantity of sleep. Sometimes that is the commonest presentation, the way I see in clinical situations. But anxiety and particularly depression can also present with what we call hypersomnia. The first one is insomnia.
Insomnia, yes.
Hypersomnia, sleeping too much, wanting to be left alone to
this
sleep.
Is now the other
It tends to occur in depression. It's not very common, but it tends to occur in depression. So when somebody says, I sleep so for many hours and maybe I don't get adequate sleep, then it's most likely depression. But then there are other possibilities of hypersomnia or sleeping too much, and you need to find out what could possibly be happening and rule out depression.
Thank you so much for watching Food for Thought with Professor Ndetei. If you are going through some of the things we are talking about as we look at insomnia, reach out for help, because help is available. If you have any topics you would want us to discuss on this program, feel free to suggest on 20316 for SMS and WhatsApp 0786 316 316. Until next week, have a great day.
Food for Thought with Professor David Bittet.